皆様こんばんは。今週も始まりましたカルダノラジオ。いやー、先週のマテウスの話もう最高でしたよね。もう今週ももう僕のトークじゃなくて彼のトークね、いっぱい聞きたいと思うんですけどもね、皆様からのメッセージもねお待ちしてますので、ぜひX の方でね、ぜひ、アシャラジオ、カルダノラジオ、ASY をねハッシュタグでつないでいただいてメッセージください。よろしくお願いします。じゃあゲストを呼んでみたいと思います。Bonsoir monsieur. I just put a little bit of bonsoir. Comment ça va? Oui, ça va, oui. Anyways, thank you very much for joining again this week.
Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, but wow, I mean, that last episode was amazing. Your opinion, your energy. I'm still a beginner, but I feel like I want to learn a lot. So, I'll be asking a lot of questions again this week. And to start out the week, you told me about you joined Cardano, the early people. So you said 2017-18, right? Last week when we spoke. Yeah. And besides being programming, I mean, I'm sorry I don't have too much research of your data, but a lot of the people that I talked to were like doing DREPs or SPOs and stuff like that. And what's your position other than programming in the Cardano ecosystem?
You mean right now, or shall we go a bit back in the history?
Yes, I want to go from the deep back in the history.
Okay. So let's rewind back.
Okay.
And see. So, I think one of the first thing I did outside of the programming aspect was probably the CIPs. So I did create the CIP process back then with two other guys, Sebastian and Guimo.
Oh yes,
you probably know.
He was on Japan. He was in the radio too.
Yeah, so he was working on Yoroi at the time, and I was working mostly on the back end of the Daedalus.
Wow.
So we had this kind of two wallets, not conflict, but competitions, right? And we wanted to do things right for users and have ways to agree on standards, so that if you have a wallet in your on Yoroi, you can import it into Daedalus and vice versa. This kind of thing where the two wallets would just work interchangeably. And there was already this big standard in Bitcoin and EIP on Ethereum, so we thought, well, let's just create a CIP for Cardano and focus that initially on the wallet. So that's what we did. And I think I still have the PR with the very first CIP, which was about the wallet mnemonic phrase generations and how do we standardize the recovery phrase and so on. And then I took the stewardship of the CIP for many years until few other people from the community starting showing up and showing interest also in reviewing. And again, big thanks to Robert, who's been around the CIP for I don't know how many years now, doing a fantastic job. And so that allowed me eventually to just step down from the CIP editorship and kind of let it fly as its own project. I think that was one thing I did. Alongside that, I used to be more present on social media, especially on X.
Yeah, you told me last week that you had a big I don't know if I would call it channel, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about that. So if you can tell me about that, that'll be great.
Yeah. I used to be pushing a bit technical threads, explainers.
Yeah.
My main intent was to try to get a bit of what we do at the engineering level distilled down for people that are less technical. But I think we should be, as engineers, capable of explaining what we do. And in a context like the blockchain, where everything we do is like super complicated, and it's very hard to a bit on the details. So I've been trying to be a bit like this this beacon of technical knowledge on X. Up until a certain point where X started drifting a bit towards a social media I not really wants to be in. Mostly, fake news, disinformation, and I don't want to go political. It's a bit hard nowadays to interact with people on X. So it was getting too much on my mental health. So I just kind of stopped. I'm still around. I still read sometimes and reply to people when I get pinged. But I don't do threads so much anymore. But yeah, so I think they're still visible there because I don't delete much. But that's another big part then of what I have been doing aside programming was really this whole education aspect. In particular, for example, when I joined the Cardano Foundation a few years ago, I spent almost a year writing down pretty much all the knowledge I had on blockchain and Cardano. And I worked with the rest of the education team to produce the Academy first course, the CBCA, which I'm pretty proud of. I think it's like 15 hours of content about blockchains, Cardano, and it was super fun to do. So write down everything, try to come up with quizzes, illustrations, and all that. So the whole education aspect, that's very dear to me. And I guess to conclude, or not, maybe, there are more stuff, but 3 years ago, one other thing I've been at the initiative of is the Builder Fest.
Yeah.
So the first Builder Fest happened in Toulouse, which were my native city back then, still. And it was an idea from a colleague of mine, Arno, who at some point reached out to us on Twitter actually and was like, hey guys, what about we do a conference that's just for the developers and the builders? Like we enjoy going to those conferences in other ecosystems, like the Haskell ecosystems, or every programming language basically has its own conferences and so on. And we thought it would be nice to have one for Cardano that is specifically for builders and developers. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And so we spent a few months organizing that on the side because that's clearly not our main job. And I'm pretty happy with the first Builder Fest and how it came to be and how it was, I think, a massive success. At least I enjoyed it. Although I was a bit on the backstage, trying to run everything and not so much participating to it. But what was cool is that it gave birth to, two other events after that. There was the Builder Fest in Vietnam last year, which I attended. And there is the next one in Argentina, which I'm also going to, because now I feel like I have to go to all the Builder Fest, right?
That's nice. I was talking to Santi. He also, joined my radio, but I really, I'm still trying to find a way, but it's going to be hard for me to go. But I really want to meet all the great people there. I mean, I know, the meeting in Argentina is going to be a blast. It's kind of, it has this vibe, the Builder Fest, that you don't find anywhere else, but it's very enjoyable. And it's you find the same people often, like half of the people maybe were the same between Vietnam and Toulouse. But you also find new faces. Like I got to meet tons of Vietnamese developers when we were in Vietnam that we didn't even know they existed, right? Because we don't actually interact much between the more Asian communities and Europe or US. It's a lot of like Europe, US. Argentina has sort of got its way through that circle because they are quite active and they are quite also willing on moving. Like Santi, for example, was at the first Builder Fest in Toulouse. And that's why I had to go to Argentina. He came, so I need to pay him a visit. But with the other side of the world, like the Japanese and Vietnamese and also India, there is less interactions, it seems, which is a bit a shame because we're a big digitalized ecosystem. So that was good to do the Builder Fest there, to meet a lot of other Cardano builders. Like there were those guys building stuff on Hydra. I had no idea, and I was like, wow, that's amazing.
So yeah,
Hydra.
if you manage to come, please come.
Yeah,
You will like it.
if I don't find a way after I finish this radio, I'm gonna start swimming, so maybe I can make it to Argentina. Yeah, I'll be dead.
I wouldn't recommend it because the Pacific Ocean is actually pretty large. We often miss it, but it's like half of the planet.
Yeah, but maybe, I'll lose a lot of weight by swimming all the way, so that's going to be fun. But,
Yep.
thinking about all the sharks, that's going to be a bad idea, so I won't do, but yeah. Anyways, but if I can find a way, I'll definitely go. And, I haven't met you yet in person, but I would love to meet you because, I feel like we share the same blood in a way, so that's
well, maybe we've met already. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
I've met a lot of people in the ecosystem and they just don't know because they don't know my face.
Yeah, because I have
Some do now.
I have a cat on my face too, but cat and what?
Yeah.
A chicken, a cat. I mean, but be careful because cat eats chicken, so you got to be careful.
Always.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways, we still got a little bit more time. So, the hot topic at the moment, this is, what just came to my mind. But recently, about the Catalyst, the Catalyst Fund 15 and 16, they called it a little bit of break, and if you can't go into details, or if we rather talk about different topic, it's all right. I mean, this is not a must, but it just kind of rang to me. And for Catalyst 14, I myself with the radio and running events, it was not a big thing, but I got approved, and I'm still doing the milestones and everything, but I was hoping to do like a big meetup for the Catalyst 15, but it didn't work out. And they're making shifts, so I think that's a good idea. But as your perspective, point of view, the way how Catalyst is shifting, if you can't talk about something, is it okay if I ask you about that, or what's your perspective on that?
I mean, you can ask my opinion, and I can definitely share my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't have much details about what's happening behind the scene, right? I'm just
of course your opinion. Yeah.
Observing that from the like the rest of the community, from what I get on social media and so on. My gist is really that I think it's good that the current Catalyst in its current form is coming to an end. It seems. Because it's been few rounds, I think, that people have been disappointed by different things, and that the formula kind of doesn't work much. I've seen all Catalyst rounds, right? Like every single one of them. And it really started as this innovation funds, and where the idea was you could invest treasury money into small startups that would develop products on Cardano and help the ecosystem bootstrap. And rapidly, or maybe not rapidly, but over the years, it has turned into the only mechanisms to get funding in the ecosystem. And it became the funding vehicle for many teams and projects that were not really fitting, I think, the box of innovation. But that were more like still in an incubation phase, trying to maybe develop a product or maybe run events, stuff like that, but like do work that is in the context of Cardano, but not necessarily pure venture hub innovation kind of thing. And Catalyst tried to adjust to that and to kind of make everyone happy. But then you had also people abusing the system completely, and that's quite visible. And that means you have to react and defend against that. So you put things in place that makes everyone unhappy. But if you don't do that, then they are even more abused. But that means now people are actually using Catalyst for what it is. It has become painful, this whole milestone reviewing process. It's painful for the reviewer, it's painful for the reviewee, it's painful for the Catalyst team. Like, I don't think anyone likes that. But now if you don't do that, you're just, giving up money to random people that might just come and, pretend they are doing something. And today with AI, it's become incredibly easy to draft a legitimate looking proposal.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard. And that means we definitely need ways of funding initiatives in the ecosystem. We need ways of incubating projects. We need ways of supporting events and things like that. But I think it's we need multiple catalysts that are dedicated to specific areas rather than one big thing that is trying to do all at once and kind of not really succeeding well at doing all at once, right? So maybe it's good we put a closure to that.
Yeah.
And we think as a community at what can be the alternatives. And now the risk is that no one in the community proposes anything else. And it just ends up being picked up by, again, one of the Genesis entity, CF or IO, or we can't pretend being in a state where we want to do governance.
Yeah.
And at the same time, let things like that be completely handled by the adults in the room. At the same time, not everyone has the capacity and the skills that, for example, we can find in CF to execute on that, because that's also tricky, right? Like you want to set up a big fund with all kind of guardrails you can imagine, with all the administrative part that this also implies. You need to be pretty solid to do that, and that means a lot of teams in the ecosystem maybe might not be suited. But I think it's still worth a try. It's still worth trying to do something, to propose. And given that we have now on-chain governance, that means anyone should be free to come up with a proposal.
Yeah, true.
And propose different alternatives to Catalyst if they like it. And I'm pretty sure that CF will be proposing something because I think CF has to, in the sense that if we don't have Catalyst, there are a lot of teams now that are going to be left aside, or that will not find any ways to get funding for their activities, and definitely a direct treasury withdrawal for them will not work.
Yeah.
That means so there is a gap to be filled, and someone needs to do it. And usually, the CF has always been there to do the things that need to be done, but that no one wants to do.
Yeah.
And so the things that don't bring you any money, that are high risk, that may fail and may look bad on your reputation, no one wants to do that. So the only actors typically that remains to do them is the CF, which is also why the CF is often, pointed at as what it is. And I do think the CF is trying to do its best. At least we are, because again, I'm part of CF.
Yeah, you're being a part of CF, so I would never complain on this radio. No, I'm just kidding, but yeah, I understand. I totally understand.
No, you could, and I would love to hear it if you have complaint as well, because that's how we progress. But there is this. I haven't been hearing it for a long time, but sometimes you could hear like CF is a whole bunch of bureaucrats that don't know anything about Cardano, and I'm like, that's not really true. Like and I'm just one example, but I've been here for like 8 years.
So you have
I'm part of this ecosystem. I've been using, all the DeFi protocols you can imagine. I've been holding NFTs. I've been using this blockchain, and I'm part of this community. And I'm just trying to do things at my scale within that. And for working with the rest of the CF, I can tell you that every single person in the CF is trying their best to make Cardano a better place. But because of the nature of the work that we often do, which is doing the thing that no one else wants to do, and that will definitely get you some heat.
True.
It's a tough job.
Yeah. I mean, long story short, of course, I always wondered, for example, there's Solana, there's other chains, maybe, on the other chains, there's a little bit of a dispute, but nobody argues so much. But for example, when Charles comes in, everybody bites on Charles. If somebody talks about new innovation on the Cardano network, then they bite. And I mean, in a way, everybody is expecting something out of Cardano, so that's good news. But I feel like everybody's even the outsiders are trading Cardano a little bit too, heavily. Too many heavy punches. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's also because we use the same words to talk about very different institution or entities, right? Like if you take the Ethereum Foundation and the Cardano Foundation, people would just compare them because they are called foundation, but they have very different roles and missions in both ecosystems. Like the Ethereum Foundation, they are literally the stewards of the Ethereum treasury, and they are the one that can allocate funds to projects and to decide which projects needs to do what, right? They decide on the roadmap. Where they have then, I think, a successful model is that the governance is on who is going to do that, not what needs to be done. So there is the foundation that gives the directions, that tells everyone this is what you should do, but they don't pick the actors necessarily. Although, once you've been working on a node for 5 years, they're not gonna pick someone else, right? So there is this kind of tacit agreement also between the Ethereum foundations, the current actors, and it kind of works that way. And it works because there is this single coordinating entity that is kind of doing everything. And that's pretty much the role that IO had in our ecosystem, right? This coordinating entity on what the roadmap should be, picking vendors to do some of the parts, sometimes internally. And so what's the role of the CF? When you look at Cardano, it's more of an entry point and an interface to the rest of the world, right? So people outside of the ecosystem, they will typically come to CF first when they want to get in contact anything about Cardano. So institutions, large companies, they need someone to talk to, and that's usually CF. Or historically, that was that, right? Over the past few years, it's moved also towards more education. And with the academy now, the CF has kind of ramped up that education. Not sure if you've seen like the quote that was released on Binance, but it had a massive reach. A lot of people learned about Cardano and Ouroboros through that course. And we're still doing that also on a regularly in like not conferences. How do you call that? In groups. Like in the European Parliament, this kind of thing where you discuss at the high level regulation laws, this kind of thing. Like again, the thing that no one wants to do, but that if you don't do, you don't make progress in the background with this institution. And now it has also a large engineering part. I think maybe 40% of the CF nowadays is engineering. And a lot of people don't realize that, but like there is my team that does a lot of different open source tooling, mostly maintaining existing tools in the ecosystem, but also developing new stuff. But to name a few, like been working on Aiken, been working on Ogmios. There is the whole Java ecosystem with Yassi and Bloxbean. We are quite in touch with many of the builders on the JavaScript lands as well. For example, with Mesh.js. With the guys from Ada Envil as well. So we really try to, have this ecosystem support. Of course, there is our own tools, but there are also everything else that is just open source tech that people might rely on. And so, why I was thinking all that. Yes, the roles of the entities. So the role of the CF today is vastly different from the role of the Ethereum Foundation. And I think the CF is really trying to be just one actor in the Cardano ecosystem, which I very much like. It's like we're not a special actor. We will always be, of course, right? Because of the Genesis entity status and so on. But at the same time, it's just one actor that has, a Genesis ADA allocation. But we're just trying to do things and to do things properly or as we think it is good to do. That doesn't mean it is the way that everyone has to follow and that this is the only way to do things. That's not at all what I'm saying. But it's just like, again, I think we're trying our best to give a good example. Some people might want to follow that. Some people might hate it and do differently. But that's perfect. We're just one actor. And that means as one actor, we need to do things that are typically expected of actors in this community, which means taking part in governance, which means using and developing tools, which means also using the blockchain for what it is, and that means sometimes building products or using products, and all that. But it's not just a coordinating entity that dispatch funding, which is, I think, why sometimes there has been this frustrations. Like a lot of people see CF as that, where it's not.
True. I mean, not talking about manipulation, but you kind of mentioned about not fraudulent, but earlier, not using the catalyst funds correctly, and Japan is not like like a too big of a society for the Cardano community, but when it comes to like catalyst funding and stuff, I've been watching the society, and there is some certain things that we should not close our eyes on. I mean, you guys probably understand, but that could have been one of the reasons that there was a halt as well, right? I mean, and it's not only about the catalyst. I mean, for example, if you have some government funding, people try to get sneaky and try to do this and that, but there has to be a great system that controls like the entrance. I mean, not only the KYCs, but I don't know, because I'm never in the inside of the catalyst people, but if the catalyst, the 15 and 16 is on the rest, but once this gets restored and everything gets refreshed, I think it's going to be better for the new people, like you said, the new ventures, if they can tip their proposals, and if they can get funded. I think a lot of more good projects will enter the Cardano ecosystem. That's how I feel.
Yeah, there are definitely things where KYC can be an answer.
Yeah,
and where that can work. I also think it is kind of interesting to have a model where you don't necessarily need to be KYC'd to get access to funding as well. But it's also very risky, right? You're just giving money out to someone that you don't know might be actually the same person you just gave money in the previous rounds. They just use two different identities. I think what I believe in as a potential model that can work is what we call retro funding in open source, which is you've done something, and that thing, we can measure what value it has because you've done it. And maybe it took you 6 months and so on, but someone else say, well, I could have done that in 3 months or whatever. But you can kind of agree on what's the value of the things you've produced, and now you can ask funding for retro funding that back. Like, hey, I've already produced that. Can I get a bit of allocations? And of course, the first time it's tricky, because the first time you don't have the money to develop it.
Yes.
But once you've done it, then you can use that money to fuel the next activity and so on, which means that for that model to work, you need some initial investment.
Yes.
At either time or money, or find someone to sponsor you, because they trust you and they have this relationship with you that, okay, it's less risky for them to give you a bit of money because they trust your project. And when I say you, that can be like just companies or entities or whatever else, but you get my point, right? You need to have some skin in the game to get started. And once you started and you kind of keep on producing things and do the things you said you would do, you get retro funding for that. And I think that's a model where you don't necessarily need to KYC people here, because what you are actually paying for is a deliverable, not just a promise. And you get to pay for things that have actually been done, not that might hypothetically happen. So I think that could be a model that works. And if I had more time, I would definitely try to propose maybe an alternative to Catalyst that does that, and see if people would like to do it. But I'm already on top of 15 different things, so that's not something I'm gonna pursue.
But
But as I said in the previous episodes, ideas are cheap, right?
Correct. And you gotta go, but I'm just gonna keep you for a few more minutes. But at the same time, in Japan, we got one of the best crowdfunding systems. And if there's a way that, I'm not a super programmer, so I don't know what I can do, but if I can connect a lot of people and implement that and make a new, not a new catalyst, but a different style of people, not voting, but like they make a proposal and people just invest. Like, if that system works, it's going to be good. So that's going to be different conversation when we have time next. But yeah, but you know what, thank you. Thank you very much.
And I mean, we have a whole blockchain under our feet, right? So tons of use cases are possible, and sometimes I wish we use more the blockchain for ourselves first, because it's there, so we might as well use it.
And one more thing before we end. I mean, since I told you, it was a little project, but I was lucky enough to get approved by the Catalyst. But what I feel is like, they give you increments. For example, let's say you get approved about maybe 30K. For maybe the milestones, about 8 months, they gave you like 1,500 ADAs this month, next month, this month, next month, and and afterwards you do the milestones, they give you the rest, right? I mean, people like the real programmers and everybody, they need money ahead of time, right? So, and one thing that I don't
sometimes,
and one thing that I think about Catalyst is like, I mean, they don't approve anything that you work ahead of time. For example, if the project you planned is going to start from December, what you did in November doesn't count. I mean, you know what I'm trying to say, right? So if there's a way for like, if you write a, not like an essay, but this is what we're going to do, and this is the way, can you give us maybe 20% of the fund ahead of time? Not like increments of like, 1,000. I mean, it makes more sense. I mean, giving you like, stitches, snitches doesn't really work for people, I think. I mean, I'm not a professional in that industry, but what do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know. It is super tough because you always end up with a situation where if you want to do things incrementally, you need someone to be able to tell whether or not you want to allow the next payment. So that means you need reviewers, you need people that have enough context to make that decision. And usually, it's not a full-time job. That's something which people won't be doing for free unless they have another incentive to do it. But
True.
if you want the whole thing to be decentralized and not biased, and it gets messy very fast. And I think it's hard to set up. And I don't know. Honestly, I don't have a good answer either, because that's not necessarily something I've been giving enough thought. And that's something I hope others in the ecosystem can solve, because I'm focusing more on the technicalities.
You're the man. You're the man making the things happen. So I'm sorry.
Exactly. But I would be super happy, if someone comes and say, well, we have this idea of a system, but technically that means we would need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. Can Cardano do that? And now we talk, like, okay, you need to have a voting system that aggregates signatures in a transparent fashion or anonymous way. Like, okay, let's talk, but it also needs to serve something that works. And it's super hard to evaluate. Like, I haven't seen anywhere really a process of grant mechanism process that kind of doesn't have problems, right? They all have different trade-offs, and it's just which one are we okay with and which ones works for us. And that's why having a plurality of solutions, I think, is important, because you might have problem with one but not the others. And that's what decentralization means in the end, that you don't get to be imposed one grant mechanism. You can choose the one that fits your own values and trade-offs.
So basically, you didn't have an answer, I didn't have an answer. That's why, the Catalyst didn't have an answer, so they have to think about it for a few months. So, having a break, I think that's the best answer. You know what? I mean, you can't really lie and, just keep on going. I mean, I think it was a very difficult decision to, switch points and saying stop. I mean, people don't say that. They kind of drag it. I don't see this.
And I think it's hard because you're gonna put some people in.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got to wrap you up because you got to go because you're a very busy man. And, I'm so sorry. I'm very happy because, this was a very long episode, but I'm sorry to keep you on long. But anyways, hopefully I'll see you next week again. So just thank you very much for joining me again. And we'll talk very shortly. And I want to learn more from you. So thanks, yeah?
Thank you.